So let's look at what are the things that we are going to cover today. So we are going to see what is TestCafe, why we should use TestCafe as a test automation tool to do end-to-end testing, and the basic concepts used in TestCafe. And also, finally, I'm going to demonstrate how to build your first test script with TestCafe. And you will see how easy it is to write end-to-end test cases. So let's move on. What is TestCafe? TestCafe is a Node.js tool that helps you to automate end-to-end test scenarios. So if you want to automate one of your test scripts, maybe you already have a regression test suite that you are manual testing. If you want to convert it to an automation test suite, so this is one of the best tools currently available to do that. And as we progress, you will see why is that. So TestCafe, if you want to drink a cup of TestCafe, there are two flavors you can choose. One is free and open source TestCafe, which we are going to talk today. The other one is a paid version, which is more like Catalan Studio, if you are familiar. So it is focused on non-script testing, codeless testing. So there you can record, play, and do everything, but you have to pay for it. So that's the biggest advantage of TestCafe Studio IDE. You have to pay for it as a yearly subscription or so on. But without that fancy options, you can use TestCafe for free and open source with an MIT license. So it's going to be free and open source for the foreseeable future. And you can do whatever you can imagine with this open source version too. So I'm going to show you today how to do things easily with this open source option. So now let's see why we should use TestCafe for our automation testings. Number one thing is no third-party dependencies. So if you are using something like Selenium, you have to depend on a lot of third-party dependencies, even like something like TestNG to manage the test cases and so on and so forth. But you don't need many third-party dependencies to deal with TestCafe. And it's human-readable JavaScript tests. These tests are super easy to read and understand by anyone, and anyone can easily create these tests. You will see in a moment. And the TestCafe is made focusing on automation completely. So it answers many questions that automation engineers faces these days, something like Selenium and other automation tools. It can automate waiting times, so tests are less flaky. You don't have to worry too much about timing your test to the perfections. TestCafe handles it for yourself. And so there are features like automated authentication scripts. If time permits, we'll look into that. But for the moment, I'll explain. So you can have a role-based authentication system included in your test script itself. So you can easily automate authentication part of an application too. And there are hooks before each hooks, after each hooks, before hooks, and after hooks, where you can keep your test scripts clean and clear and very efficient. And TestCafe obviously supports cross browsers. So talking about cross browsers, you can see I have installed Chrome over here, Firefox, Edge. So whatever the browser I have installed in machine, TestCafe supports it. You will see the evidence in the moment. And it helps cross-platform testing. You can run these scripts on Windows, Ubuntu, Linux, any Linux flavor, and Apple. No worries at all. You can run on any platform. And this helps. TestCafe also facilitates remote devices testing and mobile browser testing. This is not native applications, but if you want to test your mobile browser on your mobile device itself, this supports that feature too. So now let's compare something like a Selenium, something like a industry giant like Selenium, and a well-known Node.js based test automation tool Cypress.io and TestCafe. So Selenium had major drawbacks, though it is still the industry giant. So one thing is page loading times and element loading times. We have to handle them using waits and different methods. Sometimes thread sleeps. So we have to do a lot of things to optimize a test script while developing using Selenium. So those things, we don't have to worry about those things when using Node.js based tools like Cypress.io and TestCafe. So they handle them using await and async functions, using asynchronous synchronations. So another thing is creating test cases is time consuming in Selenium. Whether you use Java, C# or Python or whatever the language, you have to focus on writing the test a lot. It's not easy. It's very tiring process. But with Node.js and JavaScript, you can write test cases super fast, super easily, and in a human readable format. And then if we look at another disadvantage of something like Selenium is difficult to set up test environments. We have to set up a lot of things. We have to configure web drivers. We have to update driver versions. We have to set paths for driver versions. And also what else, like we have to have different drivers for different browsers, and we have to have dependency tree clean and all. So we have to do a lot of work to set up a test environment. But in Node.js tools like Cypress.io and TestCafe, these things are one command away. You don't have to worry a lot about these things. I will show you in a moment. So Cypress.io is currently the most famous, I would say the most famous Node.js based automation tool. And it came as a savior from Selenium for us, but it also had some flaws. So one thing is Cypress cannot drive two browsers at the same time. So let's say you want to run your test on Chrome and the Firefox at the same time. Cypress cannot facilitate that at the moment, but TestCafe, I will show you, you can run all the browsers you have installed in your machine at one go at the same time concurrently. No issues there with TestCafe. And then coming to another drawback of Cypress.io, it doesn't provide support for multiple tabs. So if multiple tabs and windows are open, you are in some trouble with Cypress.io. But in TestCafe, it includes methods that open, close, and switch between browser windows. And you can test through and throughout browser windows as much as you want with TestCafe. Another disadvantage of Cypress.io kind of Node.js tools is Cypress doesn't provide support for browsers like Safari and IE at the moment. So at the moment, they don't support Safari and IE. But TestCafe is designed in a way, theoretically, it should support whatever the browser that you have installed in your machine or your test environment. Let's say in my local machine, I have installed some browsers. All of them should support by TestCafe. And if you are running this in a, let's say, a different server, if you have installed all the browsers you want to be tested, TestCafe should run smoothly on each and every browser without causing an issue. So TestCafe is already very actively tested against all the common browsers that we use: Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge, Firefox, Safari, Google Chrome Mobile, you name it. So they have actively tested officially against these browsers, and TestCafe, this is the most strongest point of TestCafe. It supports many browsers, and you don't have to change your scripts from browser to browser. And also another thing is, so we come across a lot of iframes when testing web applications as pop-ups or maps or some. We have to deal with iframes. So there was limited support in Cypress.io for iframes, but TestCafe has overcome that thing. Also, we can switch the context from the main window to iframe at any time we want and test iframes too. So those are, so now you might have an idea how much an advanced tool is this TestCafe. So now it's time for us to look into how a TestCafe, how to install TestCafe and configure TestCafe. So even though there are many advanced features, there's not much for you to do to install and configure TestCafe. The only prerequisite is you need to have Node.js and npm running in your machine. So if you have completed that prerequisite, so the next thing you need to do is just run one command to install and configure each and everything. The command is npm install, that -g is for global if you want to install it globally, or you can go for a local directory too, and just type TestCafe. So everything will be installed, and after you create your first test script, this is how it's going to look like. So if you are not someone who is very familiar with automation testing, or you are coming from a Selenium background or something, you might think, this is lot to take. There are a lot of codes, I don't understand everything. But let me explain you section by section. So at the end, you will understand how easy it is to automate our test scenarios with TestCafe, this JavaScript based test automation tool. So first thing is selecting elements in TestCafe. So when we automate a web application, we have to extract elements from that web application for us to manipulate. So for that, TestCafe provide a feature called selector, a class called selector, and using these selector functions, we can identify elements. So for this selector functions, we have to give the CSS selector of an element, not the XPath. If you are coming from a Selenium background, this might be a bit confusing for you, or a bit disappointing for you, because you are familiar with XPath. But CSS selectors are way more readable, and they are very fast locating elements rather than using XPaths. That's why TestCafe is supporting XPaths. So let's say you have a CSS selector, something very long like this. So if I explain this CSS selector, it's an anchor tag with a link to a web page, HTTPS, Web Express, and so on. And inside that anchor tag, there should be a class called LC2LB, and there inside that class level, there should be a span. So this is how we represent something like this. This is absolutely readable than XPath. But if we want to enhance the readability more, TestCafe provides us another option to use chainable selectors. So we can change, you can see, we can change that long thing like this. So we say we need to find a selector with anchor tag where these attributes are and has this child and this child. So this is way more readable than using XPaths or even longer CSS selectors like this. So that's about selectors. You can select whatever you want using selector functions. Now let's talk about grouping test in TestCafe. To group test in TestCafe, we have a keyword called fixture. So every TestCafe test script should have at least one fixture, and a fixture can have one or more tests in that. So what a fixture does is, let's say you have 4 or 5 tests for login page itself. So this groups all the tests together and keep it in an organized way. To declare a test, you can use the keyword fixture, and you can see I have given a property called page dot page. So you can, that's the base URL where the fixture will run your test. So next we are going to look how to interact with the web page. So you have to type things, you have to click things, you have to hover on things. So many things you have to do in a web application. To to do those things, TestCafe provide a set of APIs or functions to do that. The test control object includes action as its methods. So you can see a T here. This is called the test control object. So if you're coming from a Selenium background, you can think this like the web driver you call. So this is you just don't have to worry about this. Once you are familiar with this syntax, you just have to call it as an async function, and then you just have to type you want to click link to page. This is probably a link. You want to click this link, and this is how you call it. Some commonly used actions are click, type text, press key. So there are so many things. There were like 20 and more than 20 in the list, but I just included some commonly used ones here. So next thing we have to discuss is how to do element weighting in TestCafe. So I say it is automatically done. How it is automatically done? Using this async and await keywords. So this async and await keywords are based on promises. So once there's the async keyword and when we call the await keyword, what it does is before clicking link to page, it waits for a moment till this link appears on the web page. You don't have to time it manually. So this automatically happens. And let's say it's a website that doesn't have a good performance. So it might take very long time, sometimes 2-3 minutes to wait. So in that case, this awaiting can time out. So if that timeout is not a bug but a feature in your web application, those things could happen in an improving web application. They are also providing a wait, something like similar to click. We have a wait function to call upon wait, but in my experience, I haven't used wait. I have rarely used the wait. The most of the time, TestCafe handles waiting times automatically using async and await keywords. We don't have to worry at all about that. So that's how TestCafe do the magic of waiting. This is the main thing I see in TestCafe. The best thing that happens in TestCafe, there are no flaky tests. Everything runs very smoothly with these async and await functions. Right, now let's look into assertions in TestCafe. So whatever the test we do, we need to verify that we get the expected results. So there are assertion functions in TestCafe, which helps us to test whether we are getting the expected things we expect from a test. So this is an assertion here. So it's based on behavior-driven development style. So this describes a behavior. We expect the page title inner text to contain 2 words called demo and test. So that's what basically happens. So it's very readable, very easy to understand, and that what does assertions in TestCafe too. So there are many assertions in TestCafe, assertion functions you can call, but I have just mentioned 6 very commonly used assertion functions here. Right, so that's it with the basic introduction, what we need to know before we write our first test. So now I think it's a good time to get on some hand-on experience. So I have created a folder called test demo, and the only thing I did before starting the demo is this is totally built from scratch. I initiated it as an Npm project for the easiness of managing things. So so you can just run your TestCafe test scripts from anywhere you want in the machine as long as you have installed Node and Npm. But it is recommended, or it is a best practice, I would say like that, a best practice to create it as an npm project. So if anyone doesn't know how to create a npm project, you have to just type npm init, and it will ask you several questions, and it will create the package JSON, and then you just have to install whatever you want to use within this npm project. So I have installed TestCafe. So it's locally installed TestCafe now. This takes like 2-3 minutes to install TestCafe. That's why I did this before, because I don't want to waste any of your time. So now we are all set to create our first test script. So let me add our first test script. Before that, I think I have to show you what we are going to test. So this is what we are going to test, a web page called Zero Web App Security. So this is a demo web application which anyone can use for demonstration purposes or testing purposes. So our first test scenario will be login function. So they have provided the correct login username and password. So the login is username and the password is password itself. So if we type the correct username and password here, we should be able to go into website. And when the website is loaded, what I'm going to assert is whether this cache accounts title is available in the web page. So let's check how it is done. So let me log out, and so this is the web page I'm going to automate. So write our first test script. I'm going to copy the web page address, and let's open our project. So you can use whatever the text editor you want, but I love Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to progress with it. So our first test is going to be a login test, login_test.js. First thing you have to do is you have to import selector. So selector is our savior when we are going to identify elements from the web page. So we have now imported selector from TestCafe. Now we have to create a fixture. So I'm going to tell this login test, because that's what we are going to automate. And for the page, I'm going to give the page. So note I have used what do you call this, backcodes. So backcodes are a must in this syntax. So that's something to remember. For fixture, whatever you define in fixture, you better use the backcodes. But everywhere else you can use the normal codes. All right. Next, we have to create a test. So this test would be to check whether a user can log in successfully. Right. And you have to call this as an async function, and you are going to call the test controller. All right, our skeleton is ready now. Now what we have to do is to get elements into this test script. So let's check what are the elements we need. We need an element called login input, password input, and sign in button. Let me quickly create some variables. So I'm going to create a variable called login input. It's be a selector something, and then I'm going to create something called password input. It's going to be a selector something, and I'm going to create what do you call sign in button. Yeah, button also going to be a selector something. So we have to within as a string, we have to provide the CSS selectors here for each and every test. each and every selector to create these elements. So how to identify CSS selectors? This is the traditional way. I'll show you the traditional way first. You have to open, by clicking inspect or Control-Shift-I, you have to open the developer tools in Google Chrome or in Firefox or whatever you like. And then you have to inspect. You can click this small arrow thing and just inspect here. So inspecting, you can say this is the input we want to create as an element in our test script. So it has ID, it has a name. So we can use one of these as our CSS selector. And CSS selector, it uses hashes for IDs, dots for classes. But what I'm saying is you don't have to remember those things. So all those things are handled for us by someone else. In this case, Google Developer Tools. We just have to copy them. You just have to right click here, go to copy and copy CSS selector. And then just go and paste here. That's done. We have created our first element. To create our second element, I'm going to introduce you another method, which is called using a Google extension. I'm using the POM build extension. It is a very prominent extension. So these kind of extensions help us to identify XPath, CSS selectors, and many things in a web page. You just have to Google and install this an extension, and when it is installed, in this tab you can get POM builder. So if you go to POM builder and then you inspect the password field, it suggests you all the selectors you can use, and here we have the CSS selector. So I'm just going to copy it. That's it. And let's come here and paste it. All right. Now we have to get the selector for sign in button. Let's go back. We don't need this even now because we have the POM builder. I'm just going to go over the sign in button, right click on it, and we have a POM builder quick copy option and CSS selector. I'm going to get that. All right, that's it. We have created our elements. Now let's create few what you call actions. It's the action time. You have to call upon the await keyword because we want the TestCafe to handle automatic waiting times, and you have to call the test controller T and then time. What we want to do first is input our username. So to input things, we have the type text function. The type text function, you have to call upon, you have to say where we going to input it, and then we have to say what we want to input. I want to input the word username because that's the username, default username that we are going to try. And you can also add a few fun options like this. I'm going to use the option called paste and set this as true. So what this does is this, instead of typing letter by letter in that input field, this paste in one go. I'm sorry, there's some tune pun going. So instead of typing letter by letter, you get the whole word pasted at once. So this saves valuable milliseconds for us. Not for a small word like this, but let's say there's a 1,000-character paragraph you have to test by inputting it to a website. So you don't have to wait 1,000 milliseconds or something for that to happen. It goes in one go like this. All right, we have created our first action. Why we waste our time? Let's copy this and paste this and create our second action. Secondly, we want to add password input, and it should be password. That's it. So look at this. So this is totally fine. If you write a TestCafe script, this is not wrong. This will even run and give you result. But there's a better way of doing everything, and there's a better way of doing actions too. You don't need to repeat this await keyword OT, the test controller, every time you call upon action. You just can call it the first time, and rest of the time you can simply make this a chainable action. So I'm going to edit this like this. Right. So now what we have done is we have for this test controller, we have added chainable actions. So in this chain, first they are going to type text username. In this chain, next they are going to type password. And in the same chain, we want to next put, we want to click, you call the sign in button. Yep. All right. So after clicking the sign in button, let me put username and password. After clicking the sign in button, what we need to do is we need to identify this cache accounts title to see whether we have really gone to the website we want. We are going to check whether this cache accounts title is available. So I'm going to copy the CSS selector of it, come here and create a new variable. Let's say cache account title. Yeah, I have to put them inside quotation marks. And here we have got a bit long comparing. Something looks a bit not readable enough. So we can change this. I'll change this into a chainable selector. Why not? So I'm going to say it has a child. Like this. Yeah, that should do. So now this is more readable. We have to select this div which has a child of h2. That's it. So next we are going to do is the assertion part. You can add the assertion to the same chain too. So we expect what do you call the cache account title, cache account title, it has some inner text which we saw before. So I'm going to type inner text, and that inner text should contain we are just going to I think this is better. Instead of checking the inner text, that's pointless. We are going to check whether this exits, and it should be okay. Okay, I think I have write down everything and hopefully haven't done any typos. So let's, only way to find whether this works or not, we have to run this and check. So what you need to do is type a simple command in your terminal. You need to be in the same folder. Just type TestCafe, and whatever the browser you like, I'm going to type Chrome, and then you have to give the path to your test script. So because I'm in the same folder, I just have to give the path like this, and let's see whether it runs correctly, or if it gives any errors, we will have to just check and fix them. That's it. So you can see now Chrome is opening. The special thing to notice is it's running on a proxy. All right, so it's giving in some error. Due to an error, we have selector is not defined. Select, right, yeah, I have done a typo here. So by reading this thing, you can understand what the error I have done. Selector is not defined. That means there's an error with some selector. So the selector, I have made a typo. So let's now save it So yeah, exits. Okay. Hopefully second time is the charm.
Udara, hello.
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Udara.
Yeah. Hello.
Udara, there's another typo in the first row.
Let me check the very first part.
Yeah, the selector, first selector.
Select this one. No. Yeah. Thank you for showing. Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah. So hopefully this should run correctly now. Let's see. Now it is opening the browser, the Chrome, which I have mentioned. So it runs on a proxy. You can see instead of directly accessing the website, it runs on a proxy. And now we are in the website. We go sign in. And that's it. We have passed our first test. And maybe if you felt like it was kind of too fast, if you want to truly see what's happening, we can do that too by simply here we can insert a before each function. And yeah, I'm going to before each hook, and I'm going to make that a synchronous function. Right. So here we can call something called set test speed. So here we can add a value from 0 to 1. I'm going to make this a bit slow, halfway slow. So number 1 is the speed we saw. Now I want to reduce the speed to half of each test that runs within this fixture. So let's run the same command, maybe this time on Firefox. Yeah. Right. All right. Now you can see the Firefox window has opened because I have installed version of Firefox. It enters username, it enters password, sign in. All right. So let's do a crazy thing. I'm going to type TestCafe and type all. And then I'm going to name the test script I want to run. So this means all the browsers that I have installed so far. So it's going to be crazy. All the browsers are opening. You can see even Internet Explorer. Now nobody uses is opened, and tests are being run on each and every browser. This could take longer than before because for one thing, my machine is not a supercomputer, and also it's trying to run the test on all the browsers same time. So yeah, but it's happening relatively fast. So it's almost done, I guess. Let's look at what they say. Yeah. So it has opened all these browsers. Still, I think it's running on the fastest browser of all. Yeah. So I think you get the idea. So you, as long as you have the required browsers installed, you are not in trouble. You can run it on everything. So next, what we're going to do is, another thing, like you can run even on headless mode. So to run on headless mode, you just have to like, let's copy this this thing. Yeah, TestCafe. Another way to run those tests would be go to package test.json. Instead of type in whatever the command you want each and every time here in the terminal, so it's always a long command. You can have a set of scripts ready-made. So I'm going to test headless. So this is it, TestCafe Chrome.headless. So this is how you call the headless browser. And this is the whole command we should have actually typed in the terminal. But instead, what we have done is we have created some easy keyword kind of a thing that we can use to run tests. So yeah, I think this thing is never going to end run. I'll just stop the previous test. Yeah. Let's close those browsers. This is because the performance issue I'm currently having, because I'm screen sharing and doing many things at the same moment, because all the browsers are also open. It got pretty slow. So unless you can run this in a quite speed of in a quite speed. So yeah, now let's clear everything. Now we want to run the test in headless mode. We just run. Now you had to type npm run test headless, the name we have given here. And let's see how it goes. So in headless browser, what it happens is it doesn't build the GUI. You don't get to see what happens but in behind the scene, tests are running. You can say in the command line, tests are running behind the scene, and we are getting the results. Yeah, it passed. So this is easy if you want to remember things. And let's now deliberately fail our tests. Instead of pass, let's put password. All right. So let's save there and go to package.json. I will again move to Chrome, maybe. So let's, instead of, yeah. Now what I'm going to do is add a screenshot when every time a test fails. So what I have to tell is this S argument is for screenshots. Take on fails is true. That's it. This will create a screenshot folder and show why tests are failing. So let's run it now quickly. Npm run test. If you like, you can set the path and do many things. And yeah, there are so many things you can do with arguments, but I'm just showing the very basic here. So ideally the test should fail because we cannot proceed. Yeah, that's it. So this give a very good debug report in the command line itself. So we get to see where the test has failed, and it says a screenshot is created. So if we go to screenshot, here we can see the test has failed because login passwords are wrong. That's why the test has failed. So these are the very basic things you can do with TestCafe. Now, I think it's time for us to create another test soon. We have 15 minutes more, I guess. Right. For the second test, I'm going to create. We need to go to pay bills in our application, and we are going to add a new payee. So when a new payee is added, let's put some dummy things. All right, we add like this. So the success alert should contain the payee name. So that's what we are going to assert, whether the success alert is going to contain a payee name when a new payee is created. So yeah, so what we have to do is we have to log in, go to payable, set new payee. All right. So let me copy the URL to be put in the fixture. So here I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to name it as add new payee test.js, and same drill, we have to create import the selector, import selector. Hope I don't make any typos now. From where we want TestCafe. Yeah, and then we had to create the fixture. Fixture is add new payee, and the page is going to be what I have copied. So see, it is underlined as wrong because I didn't use the backquotes. I had to use backquotes there. So now we can create a test. User can add a new payee. That's what we are going to test. A sync key, right? This is it. Let's quickly do the next part of the drill. What we want is payee name, payee address, account, and payee details. All right. So const payee name selector, payee address, right? Address selector, const next we had account is going to be a selector. Finally we had payee details. It's going to be again a selector, and also there was the add button, so going to be selector. Let's quickly add things here, the selectors. So what we have to just do is copy the CSS selectors. This one is this address, copy the selector, right? Account, let's copy the selector, and payee details, let's copy the selector, and add button. Finally, let's copy the selector. All right, now we have to create our actions. Await t. So first we have to type payee name. So yeah, payee name is here, and I'm going to type my name, right? Next, payee address. Different game payee address. Yeah. Let's type Sidhu, right? type next what we had to type is the count. Let's type 1 2 3 4 5 6. Next we have to type details. So yeah, let's say this is for phone bill. All right, and then what we do is we click the add button. See, we have already written a test, another test, and now what we need to do is asset. So yeah, let me check what comes again as the alert. So once the add is clicked, we get the success alert. Let's just copy the CSS selector and add another variable here for the element success alert. It is also going to be a selector. That's the CSS select. So we are going to expect success alert inner text. This time we are going to capture the inner text of the success alert, and it should contain my name. So that's it. Let me clear all of this. And we can, I think, yeah, let me check the package JSON. Yeah, we can run using package JSON, npm run test. This time the test should ideally fail. So if this succeeds, it would be a surprise for me too. Let's see what happens. All right, we are going to the test. So now you see why the test failed, because this there's a prerequisite for this test, which is the login. So what we can do is add the login things, everything in the login here, copy paste everything. So it will also show, but that's not the best practice. Best practice is to use the POM, page object model. So with TestCafe, you can also easily create page object model. Now you are going to see. We are going to create a new folder for page object model. We are going to name it as page objects, let's say, and yeah, sorry, another folder for tests, and let me just drag these into our newly created the node modules got opened. Yeah, to the test. Yeah, let's move. And in the page objects, we are going to create a file for login page, login page.js. Now, whatever elements that we need to identify and also actions done in the login page, we are going to take it here. So we are going to create a class for login page. And so this class should have a constructor. And we need to export this class. Export default, I guess I'm correct, default new login page. Yeah. So this is the basic skeleton of page object model class we are going to create. Now let's go to login test and simply look at the selectors. Let's just remove all the selectors from here. I'm going to cut it and going to add in the constructor. So we can define whatever the selectors in the page in the constructor in TestCafe in a page class, but we cannot name them as constant variables, because this has to be this whatever the elements we create, this has to be properties of login page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear all the const keywords and add a new keyword, this dot. So now this is going to make this login input is going to be basically login page dot login input, something like that. And now we can create a function, an async function, login to app. So login to app, we can have all the okay. We'll just take this bunch up to sign in button. I'm going to just paste them here. Let's format it a bit. Here also, instead of type in just login input, password and sign in button, you have to type the word keyword this. So now we have created our first page object model using TestCafe, and let's go to here the fixture, add new payee, and before each hook with the async keyword. And here I'm going to call the await keyword, and I'm going to call upon the login page. So you can see the login page is imported here. In the login page, I'm going to call login to app function. I think login to app function, another thing we need to do is we can give username and password. So as parameters. So we are going to remove these strings and make them parameterized. Right. So coming back to add new payee test, login to app. So we can add two parameters here. So the correct username is username. The password is password. That's it. So this should ideally run our test. So one thing is now I have to call all the test. So yeah, let me clear this. I'll run the command from here. TestCafe Chrome. And then I'm going to set the test folder path. Yeah, we are in the same thing, right? Yeah. So test, yeah. So when I call the folder test, it's going to run all the tests in the test folder. But now we don't want to run a login test. We are not going to test the login test, and we have changed the code there too. So you don't need to remove this or name this thing only. You can just simply add another small keyword here or a function saying run this only. So this runs this fixture only. So let's say if you want to skip a test, you can type skip. So there are a lot of options like that, and those everything is described well in their documentation. So now let's just run this and see. All right, the proxy is starting. There's some error. Selector is again, selector is giving the trouble. Let me check, going to the login page. Selector, we have to import the selector here. So that's a big mistake we have done. We have to import the selector from here, and also we have to import the test control. hopefully second time is the charm. All right, we are signing in, and right. Oh, that's my bad. I have forgotten one command. So we have to click on this add new payee tab. So let's quickly copy that too, and go to add new payee. And at the beginning, type text. Yeah, I'm not going to bother creating selectors even now, because yeah, we can anyway call something like this. This is not recommended, but for the time being, we can also do this. So yeah, let's run the test again and see. I'm sorry. This should be not type text. This should be click, right? Yeah. Hopefully, let's see. All right, now we are signing in. Add new payee. Done. Test passed. All right, so we have come to the very end. I need to show you one small thing, very important thing, because a lot of you like to know how to generate reports regarding TestCafe. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to demo that as the last thing. So to generate reports, we can, there are integrated reports in TestCafe, like integrated XML reports come in already in the package, JSON reports. But what I personally like is HTML reports. So let's check whether we can have an HTML report for TestCafe, and there's a one as npm package. So what we have to do is run this command. So this is TestCafe report HTML. I had to run this command in the command prompt. So this will quickly install. This won't take time. This is not a big package, unlike TestCafe. So it's installed. We can check our package.json. So we have now TestCafe reporter HTML included in the package. Let's clear this, and they have instructed us how to call a report. We have to call the reporter keyword and then say HTML and part2, whatever where we want this report to be created. So TestCafe Chrome test, this is what we are going to test, and I'm going to call upon a reporter, and I'm going to set the path. Path should be reports. So there should be a folder called reports created here, and it should contain, let's say, report dot. So let's try running this, hopefully. Yeah, folder got created instantly. You can see a folder called reports. Now our tests are running. Right. So in the reports, there's a HTML file created. I'll copy the path of it and open in any browser. I can see a nicely created report like this. So if there are many test steps, there would be here. If there are any errors, there will be errors like this. So yeah, a report like this can be generated with the large TestCafe test suite. So that's it. There are many other things I wish I could show you within this limited time, but the time has already exceeded. So that's the end of demonstration. But if you want to know more about TestCafe, please visit their official documentation. It is very well documented with good examples and all. And also there are many YouTube videos that help you understand this TestCafe. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it from today's session. Thank you. Over to you, Lakma.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, audience? I have one question, Udara.
Yes, Lakma, sure.
Can we customize the default reporting template? Let's say that we want to add our client name and logo to that report. Can we do that kind of thing?
Definitely, Lakmal. So let me quickly show you the TestCafe. Just search for TestCafe reporter, and this will take us to the official documentation. So there they have instructed us with examples and all the things you need to know on how to customize a TestCafe report and create a report that you want. So whatever you need to do with TestCafe, it's either they are in the NPM libraries or they have instructed well enough for us to do it ourselves.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions, guys? No one? You already have some kind of experience in using Cypress, right? When comparing this tool against Cypress, how do you feel?
Yeah, that one. So actually, what I noticed is pretty much same in like coding and everything. But Udara, I noticed that in Cypress we do have some another like middle level UI when we are running this test in. We have another Chrome browser like UI to select the test when we are running, but that feature is not there in the
Not they are in the
TestCafe.
free version. Yeah, you are
Right.
correct.
Okay.
So in the TestCafe, if you go for the IDE option, there are many more options where you can customize easily. But one thing you can use for this test thing is you can use a runner API, creating a Node.js runner API. You can customize easily whatever the test to select test whatever you want to run. So that they have instructed in the user guide how to do that. So we can use metadata and select whatever the test we want and use a Node.js runner. It's not a UI, but again, through a bit of coding, we can overcome it.
All right. And when it comes to that comparison, I think this tool is a bit advanced because that multiple browser thing is pretty much useful for us because that
Yeah,
is not
that's
there in
definitely.
Cypress. So that is like big advantage here.
Definitely. So main thing is in our project also we have to test on Safari. So we cannot do that with Cypress. So this was the best option we have.
Yeah, do you have created a framework kind of thing, Udar, using this by adding test data from like this normal what we are doing in Selenium or other things? Do we have created
So
such?
yeah, so we are working on in our project. We are working on one on automating one of the manual regression tests we are running. So we are working on such a test suite, a complete set test suite for a project we are working.
All right. Yeah. That's all from my side. Lakma.
Are there any other questions? I see there are a lot of outsiders joined to this presentation. So maybe they have some questions. Also, you can use chat window to ask some questions if you have any.
Even you can't ask questions now, and if you find questions later when you are practicing this yourself, you can pop me a message at any time. So I'm always there to help you all. I'll maybe put my email address in the chat also.
Since we already passed the scheduled time, maybe we can wrap up this presentation or meeting. Thanks for participating in this, and Udara, this is a fairly good presentation and demo.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
keep up the good work.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everyone who participated. Have a nice day.
Thanks for that.